there's so many different ways that we can do hand independence. It's playing Bach is a great thing to do as well. It really gets you kind of thinking about putting something in the right hand and the left hand. And I think the thing with hand independence is that we have hand independence, but we don't actually switch up into a new form of hand independence. So for example, let's actually start. We're going to actually use a fair amount of classical examples as well today. But the idea, and I know you probably have some familiarity with Bach here, is that the left hand, at least right now in a lot of things that I'm working on with students, is more of a claw, to quote Brad Meldau here. We might have some really nice fat voicings and some shells, some root tenths, some root thirds, root sevenths, all that kind of thing. The hand independence is lacking perhaps in a certain way here. I mean, we can play, we're getting to the point now where we can play nice shell voicings and maybe, something more complicated over it. Now that is a form of hand independence, right? We have slow moving motion here, and we have eighth note motion and faster motion up here. Now, here's the thing that's so great about Bach is he gives you, especially in these two-part inventions that he actually designed for his sons, he had like a bajillion kids, and he wanted them all to learn to play the harpsichord at that time. And so he would give these exercises where we get the same melody in the right hand, and then 2 bars later, 4 bars later in the left hand. So that was the tune Satin Doll, for if you're not familiar with that. But how hard would it be, and it's going to be very hard for me to do this, how hard would it be to put the shell voicings, and I know we've actually talked about this a bit before, the shell voicings in the right hand and the melody in the left hand. Right? That actually, I'm sweating that more than you might think. Right? So we have these players that are more influenced overtly by Bach, like Brad Meldau or Keith Jarrett or Fred Hirsch, Brad Meldau's teacher, who doesn't get nearly enough credit for his contrapuntal playing. Brad Meldau kind of is the current star with the contrapuntal playing. But really getting that hand independence, you think about these two-part inventions you get, for example, the one in D minor. Right? So immediately, it's a lot to take in, but you get 2 bars later. This question and answer kind of a thing is very good. So the hand independence that we have in jazz is actually pretty strong to be able to play, something slow moving and something faster moving or more complex melodically. But when we switch that backwards, immediately it is just so strange for us to do. So that's the first thing I would suggest in the jazz world is just try flip-flopping the hands. We have this feeling for hand independence at the piano, but we often have one hand that is used to doing one thing, and the other hand is very used to doing another thing. So, for example, the left hand is very used to playing, chords more slowly, and the right hand is used to playing more complicated. Right? We're used to doing slow patterns here typically, and faster patterns, more complicated patterns in the right hand. Now, one independence exercise I like to start with, it's quite difficult, is could we put the melody into the left hand and play the shell voicings, or whatever chord voicings you'd like to use, you could use full chords, in the right hand and play the melody in the left hand. I was telling my student Tom here, it's a lot harder than you might think. I played some different shell voicings there. It's a lot harder to switch the roles or the jobs of the hand. So it's quite interesting that way. And I guess we lost Lewis here. Oh, yeah, okay. We'll see if we're 3 or 2 today. But I actually want to backtrack just a little bit into something simpler here. This is actually scale work, and feel free to try this as well. The idea of hand independence is actually a lot more simple than we might think, with scale work in particular.
Hey, Noah here. Just want to let you know really quick that most of the content you're actually seeing on this channel is coming from completely free masterclasses that we've been holding. So if you actually want to join and be a part of those masterclasses, again, it's totally free. Click one of the links in the description that will give you access to free resources, free courses, and of course the free masterclasses. And as soon as you're on the email list, you will be one of the first people to know when we are holding these masterclasses. And on top of that, you get lots of free sheet music and videos and resources as well. So highly recommend you sign up. You can also join our free online community, which is in Discord, in a server there. So you can click the link down there for that as well. And we are on there interacting, hanging out, giving people feedback and advice, as well as on the free masterclasses, Zoom hangs, and feedback sessions. So again, highly recommend you get signed up, and I will see you there.
If we actually played true, dependent hands here, playing a major scale, this is maybe not something that you've practiced as much as parallel motion here. Parallel motion would be, both hands going up. Now, even though we're playing the same rhythm and the same scale, I might argue that this is actually hand independence because we're doing 2 different fingerings. The right hand is going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Yeah. So the fingering there is different than the left hand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is very different than the 1, 2, 3 that you're starting with. If you truly wanted to start with the hands doing exactly the same thing, you would actually play in contrary motion. So the fingering is actually going to be exactly the same in mirror image. 1, and I'm starting both thumbs on C, which feels a little weird. Depending on your finger size, it might be a little awkward. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So that is actually true hand mirroring, or hands doing exactly the same thing. So when we do that, we can feel the fingers. I mean, they're on different notes, but the fingers are doing the same fingering at the same time. If you do that moving up, that's actually quite hard to do the hands together. We always start folks moving in parallel motion, but I almost would argue that if you're starting out with a new scale that has the same fingering, going down. Now, the examples of this that wouldn't work would be, for example, the B flat major scale. Going down in the left hand, you would have 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and you'd have a totally different fingering in the right hand. 2, 1, 2, 3, already totally different. So some good scales to practice contrary motion would be C major. Going around the circle of fifths would probably be helpful here. G major, you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing going up another fifth, D major, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be the same for A major, and it's going to actually be the same for E major as well. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're good all the way from C, G, D, A up to E. Now we're going to go to B major, and it is going to change. So that would be the place where I probably stop doing contrary motion. And you're welcome to do it, but you're going to be doing different fingerings. B major going down would be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. At least that's how I finger that one. And 1, 2, 3, and then a crossover. Typically when we go from a sharp note to a natural note, we cross over. Not always true, but that would be a place where it would not make so much sense to play the contrary motion, but certainly C, D, G, A, and E. That actually is an easier way to start Chick Corea also has a video on playing contrary motion on the whole tone scale, which I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that. It's just whole steps. Favorite of Thelonious Monk, Chick Corea, the classical world, Claude Debussy. If you pick a note like D, would be a great place to start here. It's going to perfectly mirror image itself as you go down. So again, this is like preparatory exercises before you get to hand independence of the scales in parallel motion. If you play a D, and let's put our 2 on there, and then we'll go thumbs on C and E. Now you can see that's a perfect mirror image. The E and the C are a mirror image of themselves. Now we're on to the sharper flat notes here with our second fingers, third fingers, fourth fingers. I'm going to cross over to a thumb on C and E and D. So to play that a little bit faster. Again, not a scale that we talk about quite as often, the whole tone scale. It's got some usefulness for sure. But Chick Corea has a great video on this of actually the mirror image from D. The same thing is also true up a tritone in A flat. If you start on A flat, I'm going to start on my second fingers. And third fingers here. Crossing over to a thumb. Second fingers. Cross over to a thumb. Second fingers. And then third finger. So you can perfectly mirror image the piano from D and A flat on the whole tone scale, and you're doing exactly the same thing. The classical pianist Marc-Andre Hamelin actually has a great exercise of playing things in mirror image. So that would actually be hand dependence. Now, if you played the whole tone scale or any other scale, pretty much you would be doing opposite fingerings. So if I play whole tone scale in parallel, it would be, I would use a 2, a thumb. Now I'm using a 2 here and a 4 here. So already we're doing different stuff. So I would say learning scales that are mirror images like that are a good place to start. Now, continuing with scale work here, this is actually a sort of an interesting one that's harder than it seems. We're going to play a C major scale in both hands. And we're going to play the right hand twice as fast as the left hand here. So let's now, we're going to, we can think of this any way we want. I'm going to think about quarter notes in my left hand, eighth notes in my right hand. This is actually harder than it seems. So we're going to go for every 2 notes here, we're going to play a note here. And of course we have to do 2 octaves because we're doing twice as fast of the notes here and half as fast here. You could do contrary against each other. I'm always looking for ways to make scale practice, which is an absolute necessity, not be boring, okay? And this is one way. We could not play every consecutive note, but we could maybe play something a little bit more intervallic, we might say. I'm going to jump around. Maybe I'll use some fourths. Right? I did some thirds as well. That is already sounding more and more like music.